Let's go to 1 Peter. 1 Peter chapter 3. He starts off talking about marriage, relationship in the home, how husbands and wives are to treat each other. And then he says, he kind of broadens it out in verse 8. He says, finally, all of you be of one mind, having compassion for one another, love as brothers, be tender-hearted, be courteous, not rendering evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, blessing, knowing that you are called to this, that you may inherit a blessing. Then he goes on, he quotes David in the Psalms. David, by the way, is one of the most beloved kings of all time. But when you read the first 50 Psalms, the ones he wrote, he's saying, this person doesn't like me, and they're talking behind my back. And, you know, it's amazing the stuff that he went through, even though he's the most popular king. And so it's one of those, it's what we were saying yesterday. So David wrote, he says, for he who would love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil and his lips from speaking deceit. Let him turn away from evil and do good. Let him seek peace and pursue it. For the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayers. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. And then he goes on about, even though you're a follower of good and you're going to suffer harm. I mean, it does happen. So he talks a bit about that. But let's go back. He says, finally have compassion. Compassion is you considering the person's situation. So what Josh did about that boy, he got compassion for him because he realized there's something wrong in his home life. The boy was being abused at home. He was being treated badly at home. And that just spilled out on the bus. When Josh perceived that, it gave him compassion for the kid. And so stopping and thinking, okay, why is the person acting this way? Why? Oh, well, they've come from, you know, they didn't even come from zero. They came from minus 500 in this whole Christianity thing. They're recovering. They're doing good, but they're just coming from a long ways away, so you can have compassion on them. Love as brothers. Be tender-hearted, keeping your heart soft. When you've been mistreated, it's really hard. Being courteous, it's easy just to snub them. It's easy just to give them cold shoulder. Not returning evil for evil, reviling for reviling. They said this about me, so I say this back to them. But on the contrary, blessing. So it's counterintuitive. You're not going to feel like doing this. But he says, rather than reviling them back or rejecting them back, because rejection always begets rejection. Rather than that, you need to bless them. So what Peter's doing here is he's reteaching Matthew chapter 5. He's reteaching the Sermon on the Mount. This is the Sermon on the Mount being regurgitated by Peter for his flock. So he said, when people do bad things to you, do something good to them. Doesn't make sense, but he's saying do it. Not rendering evil for evil, reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, blessing, knowing that you're called to this, that you may inherit a blessing. So we all want to be blessed. Well, the way to get a blessing is actually to bless those who don't deserve it. Bless those who are treating you the wrong way. Then that way you inherit a blessing. So have you ever... maybe you're all too young for this, but when I was a kid, we'd go to a store and they'd have these great big huge cash registers with great big keys, big buttons for keys, and you'd push it and it would go cha-ching, and it would tell you how much the item was, and the door would open, a big cha-ching. That was the part you wanted to hear, that cha-ching. Well, when I started blessing people who were treating me bad, and I thought, okay, if I do this, I'm not just not doing bad to them, I'm actually going the other way and doing good to them. I get a blessing for that. So someone would treat me bad, I would stop my flesh from wanting to throttle them, wanting to do bad back to them. And so that's half the battle. But then to go the other way and actually do good to them, I would do that. And the way to remind myself that I just got a blessing is inside my heart, I'd go, cha-ching, cha-ching, I just got a blessing, cha-ching. God's just blessing me. And when I would go cha-ching, God just blessed me. It's almost like saying, just go ahead and do it again, because I'm going to get a bigger blessing, because I'm going to do something good to you back. And so they would do something, and I'd go cha-ching, cha-ching. I'm just racking up the blessings today. So what it does is it makes you feel like it doesn't matter what they do, you can't lose. If you respond the right way, you can't lose. You're going to be blessed. Then he says this, for he who would love life and see good days. That sounds like, I remember thinking, boy, that sounds like a line from a song. That sounds like music to my ears. He that would love life and see good days, that's what I want. I want to be on the sunny side of the street. I want to love life. I want life to be good. I want to love life and see good days. He said, well, the way you get there so that you can love life and see good days is you need to refrain your tongue from evil and your tongue from deceit. There's something that happens. I can't explain it except it's part of our fallen nature. When someone says something bad about you, you don't just say something bad back about them, you embellish it. There's part of it that it becomes not 100% true. You have to make it seem like it was worse than what it really was, because that's what satisfies the flesh. And so he says, what you do is you refrain from doing that. You refrain your tongue from evil, your lips from speaking deceit. You turn away from evil. That's your flesh saying, yeah, I'm not gonna let my flesh do what it wants to do. I turn away from evil and I actually do good. So you're proactive. You're stopping your flesh, but you're doing good. You're the one that's seeking peace, and you're the one that's pursuing it. So you're the one that's actually saying, hey, your flesh would say, hey, you who trashed me, you who's supposed to be a super spiritual Christian, and then you're acting this way, come for coffee. Well, your flesh would love a phone call like that, but you can't give in. So he's saying this. He says, you actually have to don't wait for them to come to you and apologize. Don't wait for them to come to you to make things right. You be the one to actually start the conversation. Very hard to do, really hard to do. He said, but let him seek peace and pursue it. And the reason you do this, the only reason you do this, is because Jesus is looking. You want Jesus to be proud of you. He says, for the eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and he's listening. His ears are open to your prayer. And you don't want to ever lose the presence of the Lord. The face of the Lord and the word presence of the Lord are the same thing. You don't want that against you. You want that for you. And so let's review this in terms of warfare. Here's what I think Peter is saying. Peter's saying you can love life and see good days and actually have the blessing of the Lord, not because people treat you right, and not because everything's smooth and you have beautiful days and everything goes your way. You can actually love life and see good days when everyone's treating you badly, not based on what they do, but based only upon your response. That means the ball's in your court. That means you have the power to determine your happiness, not somebody else. You can't be miserable and you say, well, the reason I'm miserable is because they treat me so bad. You've lost the war. You can actually say, they treat me so bad, but I'm able to go on and love life and feel the presence of the Lord, and God hears my prayers, and I feel his presence, and I'm loving life, and I'm seeing good days. And they said, well, how can you do this? Don't you know they're treating you? Don't you know what they're saying about you? And you say, yeah, but it's not based, my happiness isn't based on what they do. My happiness is only based on what I do. Wow, that's empowering. That's the wonder of warfare. That's the wonder of doing what Jesus says to do. What freedom. In other words, it doesn't matter how people treat you. You can actually love life and see good days and go on and sing and worship, and they see you laughing and see that you're happy and that you go on with life, and it just has to get their wheels turning. And then you go to them and you say, hey, listen, do you have time that we can just go down to Amity and have some coffee? I want to take you out for coffee. I've coached people to do this, and I always get a chuckle out of the phone call. They'll call and they said, I actually invited them, and I said, I'm paying for lunch, and I want you to come. And they were totally mystified that I would do that. They were totally shocked that I would do that, and it was the game changer. They're doing good for those, because they know, the other person knows, I've been treating them badly, and here they are taking me out for lunch. Here they are having me over to their house for a meal. Man, it changes everything. It changes the war. The power of whether or not you win the war is in your hands. It's not in the enemy's hands. I can't tell you the number of times I've done this. Now, if I invite you out for lunch, don't read anything into it. You know. I told our church one time, I said, if you've got people who don't like you, bake them a pie. Let's just do it. We'll just bake them a pie. They treat you bad. They don't like you. Bake them a pie. Well, that week I got about 30 pies. Which is funny because there were only about 20 families in church. So I love that. That's a great old joke. I wrote that joke. I'm just giving you the tools that can change your life. It doesn't matter. You become 9 foot tall and bulletproof. It doesn't matter what people do to you. It doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter how the war goes against you. It will go against you at some point in time. It's just a matter of time, no matter how sweet you are. And now you've been taught from Jesus' own words, from his own. It's how Jesus won the war. It's not for wimps. It's not for whiners. It's not for wusses. It's for people who really want to be like Jesus. And you'll have to practice this. But I'll tell you, it changes everything.